Welcome to Creamer Media's Polity. I'm Brad Doubleman. I'm at the Centre for Policy Studies in Braamfontein to meet with senior researcher Aubrey Machiki to discuss corruption in post-apartheid South Africa. You argue that former Police Commissioner Jackie Selebi's conviction raises questions about the nature of corruption in post-apartheid South Africa. Please explain.
Well, there are assumptions that we make about the nature of corruption. For instance, some ANC supporters believe that the ANC was not corrupt, or there was no corruption in the ANC prior to 1994. And then they also believe that it is only the National Party during apartheid that was corrupt. And the point I'm trying to make is that we must be open to the possibility that the National Party did not own a monopoly on corruption. We must be open to the possibility that the corruption we see today may be an extension of corrupt practices that may have started while the ANC was in exile and operating underground under conditions of illegality. Now, I'm not suggesting that the ANC as an organization condoned corruption or as an organization was corrupt. I'm simply saying we must be open to the possibility that some of the people who are corrupt today, who are members of the ANC, who are in the ANC government, may have been part of corruption networks even prior to 1994.
Do you think that the prosecution of Selebi was politically motivated or simply just justice running its course?
Well, Selebi has failed to convince the court that the investigation behind his conviction was politically motivated. But in the past, we have had reason to be concerned about selective investigations and therefore selective prosecutions. So you cannot rule out the possibility that two things happened with regard to the Selebi case. That first of all, the prosecution may have been politically motivated. But even if it was, it doesn't take away from the fact that he committed a crime. So sometimes you do find a coincidence of the ignoble, in the sense that a person accused of a crime may indeed be guilty of that crime, but the prosecution itself may have been motivated by the ignoble to the extent that it was politically motivated.
You say that corruption is obviously not an ANC invention. Has corruption increased since the ANC came into power in 1994, or is it a case of increased accountability and transparency associated with democracy?
If we must be completely factual, it is difficult to say, because during apartheid we had almost no idea of how deep the scourge of corruption was, because by its nature, apartheid was not transparent, and a lot happened in the dark. Now, with the advent of democracy, and ironically, because of the principles that drove the liberation struggle, there is more attention now being paid between the principles of that struggle and the extent to which the proponents of that struggle, who are now in government, are living their lives and are leading government in accordance with those principles. So we are a much more open society, and therefore it is not surprising that there is much more of a focus on the gap between what the liberation struggle promised and what is actually happening with regard to principles and how they impact on corruption. When it comes to apartheid, that was a closed, undemocratic society, and we will probably never know how deep the problem of corruption was.
You propose a new vehicle for dealing with corruption with special investigators and prosecutors reporting to a multi-party parliamentary committee. Do you think such a vehicle will be effective?
Well, the key here is that we must have a conversation about creating structures that are independent and truly independent. And it seems to me the starting point would be to create an institutional mechanism or a body or units that are independent not only from politicians, but are independent from, let's say, the police and the prosecution authority. And the idea is that you set up this body with a mandate for a specific period of time to deal with very serious incidents of corruption. And such a body would report directly to Parliament and do so through a specially created multi-party parliamentary committee over which Parliament as a whole will perform its oversight function.
Is the establishment of such a vehicle likely?
In the current climate, I doubt it is. But if all we achieve is a conversation in society and amongst politicians about that, that would be a good start. Remember, we have had corruption summits in the past, which means at least there is a preparedness, even on the part of politicians, including politicians in the ruling party, to have conversations about corruption. What we need to do is to accept that one of the lessons we learn about the Selebi case and other cases is that those who investigate corruption must be much more independent than they are, and to avoid those who investigate being corrupted themselves, they need to have a limited mandate, a mandate that is limited to a specific period of time with very clear targets of what they need to achieve over that period of time.
Thank you, Aubrey.
You're welcome.